beautiful souls, I am Mommy on a Journey and welcome back to my channel. If it's your first time coming across my channel, welcome and thank you for stopping by. If you're interested in personal development, healthy plant-based eating or just anything in between, stick around and subscribe because that's what my channel is all about. So in this video, we're going to be talking about perfectionism. So the reason why I wanted to talk about it is because I just wanted to shed light on it, the good, the bad, and of course the signs. So if you're interested in that, please stick around. Alright guys, so before I get to the signs, I just wanted to mention that perfectionism is not a psychological disorder. I know a lot of people use OCD and perfectionism interchangeably. OCD is a psychological disorder where some of the people do portray signs of perfectionism, but perfectionism on its own, it's just a personality trait. It is not a psychological disorder. So let's get to the signs. So the first sign of being a perfectionist is that you set unrealistically high expectations of yourself and of others. So what I mean by this is that your goals aren't always reasonable. And I know that perfectionist in you is trying to say, but aren't goals supposed to be high so that you reach them? And no, in the case of a perfectionist, you tend to, once you get to the goal, you achieve the goal. Let's say you have a project, for example, and then the project is now complete and you did pretty satisfactory work. Let's say 90% of the work was to the T. It's just that your human error, maybe here and there were mistakes, but life happens, you know. But you happy 90% of it was perfect and great. Usually maybe a high achiever would be like, that was great, I'm happy. But a perfectionist, on the other hand, will see it more of it's a failure because that little 10% didn't work out right. Maybe in the project something here went wrong and I was not happy with it, and instead of saying 90% was great, you now focus on that little 10% that was beyond your control, but you still feel like I failed and it was a horrible project, even though 90% of it was great. You understand? That's how perfectionists see things. So the second sign that you are a perfectionist is that you are quick to find fault. You're overly critical of mistakes or imperfections. So as I just mentioned, that 90% of the project that you did was great, but that 10% there were mistakes that happened. So instead of you moving on, I'm like, okay, that was a good, I'm satisfied, let's move. You now super focus on that little 10% that went wrong. So you find it difficult to see anything else but the fault. And because of this, once you see yourself as a failure, you start being hard on yourself and you start being judgmental and all of that. So that's the second sign. So the third sign that you are a perfectionist is that you are a procrastinator. So most of the time, being a perfectionist is driven or pushed by either a fear of failure or a fear of judgment or both. So what happens is that before you do anything, you always think, no, it has to be perfect. So it has to be perfect before I do this. It has to be perfect before I. And this in turn sort of immobilizes you and you feel like I can't do it. And you end up not doing it because it needs to be perfect. And obviously things will never be 100% perfect. So let's make an example with that. Let's say you are a very crafty person and a lot of your stuff people like, and you decide, okay, no, actually it's a good idea to sell these things. I think they would sell. But now you end up thinking, ooh, what if I sell them and no one buys them? And then you think, okay, what if I don't make the product the same way and it's not accurate? Or maybe what if it's a bit skewed because it's handcrafted and maybe you need machines? And you start thinking, okay, no, maybe I need to do research first. Okay, fine, you do the research and you're like, okay, wait, but maybe I need to first get capital before I do it. Maybe I need enough money first. Maybe I'll buy machines to do it instead. And then you think, okay, maybe, and you keep delaying and procrastinating until you end up not doing it at all, you know? So that's what tends to happen a lot with perfectionists. You tend to put things off, and sometimes it's also you avoid challenges. So instead of challenging yourself or doing something that you think, woo, this is going to be a big deal, you don't do that because you fear being judged or you fear failing. So you end up procrastinating that thing that you want to do or that challenge because you just feel like it's a lot, I can't, you know. So that's another sign. So the fourth sign is that you shrug off compliments and you don't usually celebrate your successes. So this is because usually you focus on your mistakes, you focus on the flaws. That when maybe someone comes up and compliments you like, hey, you are so beautiful, you often think, okay, no, wait, you find automatically the flaws. Or no, but my nose is, I don't like my nose. Or okay, I don't like my body. Or I don't like my hair. Or I don't like this, or that, I don't like that. You automatically think that, and you either evade the compliment, you just pretend like that never happened, and you talk about something else. Or you say, oh no, thank you, but you know, I don't like my nose. Or I wish I had your what, or whatever. You understand? You don't usually just take the compliment and appreciate it, you see. And then in terms of celebrating your successes, what happens is that because you automatically look at what went wrong and what you could have done or should have done, you don't take time to be like, oh, but this is the great that I did, this is the good job that I did, or whatever it may be. So you just end up putting it right along, oh, that was nice, so you move on, you know, because your mind is not fully like, oh, that was a success. You still assume it as a type of failure, you know. So with this sign, what often happens is that you tend to have a lot of toxic comparisons, where you compare yourself with other people in an unhealthy way, and sometimes you seek approval or validations from others. The fifth sign is defensiveness. So most of the time as a perfectionist, you tend to be quite defensive and justify things quite often because you are highly sensitive to criticism, and when someone criticizes you, you automatically have your guards up and you just want to defend yourself, mainly because even if it's positive or constructive criticism, someone is trying to help you and help you better yourself, but in turn, instead of you seeing it as helpful information that you can use to build yourself and grow and change, you know, you end up taking it in the bad way and internalizing it, and in turn trying to protect yourself from it, and that's why you get defensive. And the last sign of perfectionism is that you tend to be detached or isolated from people. So most of the time this is because of trust issues, because it's almost like a protective mechanism where you distance yourself from people, because remember, you're highly sensitive to criticism. So this sort of puts like that protective barrier between you and people. Because you are a perfectionist, you tend to think that you're the only one that can do something right, and that the next person won't be able to do it right. So you tend to distrust that they will do it properly. So that's another thing. So either you isolate yourself from people, or they remove themselves from you, because you tend to be difficult to work with, because you either want to do everything on your own because you feel like you're the only one that can do it perfect or do it right, or you isolate yourself from people because you fear them criticizing you that you're not doing things perfectly, you understand? So it could be either or. There are different kinds of perfectionists, 3 to be precise. The first one being self-orientated perfectionist, where you put pressure on yourself to be perfect. And then you have other-orientated perfectionists, where you put pressure on the other person to be perfect. And then there's socially orientated perfectionist, where you believe that everyone else is perfect but you. Perfectionism isn't all that bad. There are some good qualities when it comes to perfectionism, like you achieve all of your goals most of the time, even though for you maybe you might feel like you failed here and there, but in general you do achieve your goals. And then another thing is that you tend to be quite diligent in all your work. So because again you're striving to be perfect, you make sure that you go through everything, that everything is done right. And then another thing is that you become very good at analyzing situations, people, and your work, because now you're trying to be perfect. You're trying also to be perceived as perfect. If you maybe fear judgment, or if you fear failure, so, and also you fear criticism, so you try by all means to analyze every situation and read people. So, and another thing, because of that, you become extra vigilant, because now you are sort of judging people around you. You are almost analyzing your situation, your environment, and you don't want to put yourself in certain situations or environments to avoid certain things. So you end up just being hypersensitive to your surroundings and to the things that you do and the things you surround yourselves with. So now guys, to bring it all together, basically I thought to share this with you guys because it's something that I'm sort of figuring out. I've been doing quite a lot of auditing of myself and trying to figure out what traits I have, what do I want to keep, what I don't want to keep, and just basically unburdening myself with all these things that I've burdened myself with all these years. So perfectionism was one of them, because I used to take pride in perfectionism. Like if someone called me a perfectionist, I feel like, hey, I mean, there's this positive connotation towards perfect, and when someone calls you perfectionist, automatically in my mind it's like, oh, they're calling you perfect, and who doesn't want to be perfect? So that's what's been happening. And now that I'm more self-aware, I'm starting to realize that some of these qualities, like it works against you, and you start to think, okay, why is it working against me? Is it not supposed to be working for me? And as I'm unpacking all of this, I started to realize that actually perfectionism is not all that great, and there's a lot of underlying stuff which I'll talk about in another video. But today I just wanted to mention this and also show you that there is good, there is bad in it, but most of the time you'd see the side that you want to see. So when I look at my life and I start to look back, that I've actually always been a perfectionist for as long as I can remember. And for me it was a good thing, because I mean, most of the stuff that I've achieved was because of this trait, and I've achieved most of the goals I wanted to achieve. I've done everything that I've always wanted to achieve. And also I used to always say that I always finish what I start, which is true. I always finish what I start. So whenever I started something, I'd make sure that I finish it, and the perfectionism in me would like not let me leave things undone. So it can be big things, it can be even small things, like things that wouldn't even matter. Or no man, I was trying to clear up the table and I just moved one thing. I'm like, no man, I'll clear up later. It will eat me up. Or if I tell someone, no, I'll do this for you, and I don't do it, it'll eat me up. I will keep telling myself, you said you're gonna do it, you said you're gonna do it, you said you're gonna do it, until I actually do it. So I end up completing everything that I started. So it's good in that sense, but the processes in my head is not so good, so the way I talk to myself was not so good. And for the longest time, for example, I've always been called lazy. I'm a lazy person, and I've made peace with it. I've always been like, okay, I'm lazy, it's fine. But it wasn't that I was lazy, because I mean, I finish everything that I start, all the goals that I want, I achieve everything, you understand? So it's kind of like, actually, where's the problem here? And then I start to realize that no man, it's because I procrastinate, and it comes across as lazy. So let's say I wanted to do anything, so it's difficult for me to start things. It's difficult for me to get myself to start anything that I want to do, because whenever I want to start, the intrusive thoughts start coming, and it's more of a, okay, you want to do this, are you going to be able to finish it? That's the first thing, because I have to finish it. If you start something, I have to finish. So I cannot start something that I know I'm not sure if I'll finish or not. So that's one of the things. So when I start something, it's like, okay, am I gonna finish it? And then the other thoughts then start seeping in. It's like a flood of thoughts that come. Oh no, you have to first do this, you have to first do that, and what about this? Okay, so if you do it, what do you need to do? Are you gonna be able to do it? And then all these things start coming, and you're like, no man, you know what, let me take a break. And then, because it's not that I'm taking a break from it, it's just more of the thoughts are crippling, they weighing me down, and I feel like, I won't be able to do it. And I know I have the capability to do it, but it's more of a doing it, and then I have to finish it, and then it has to come out good, and then it has to be perfect, and then it's just a lot. So then it becomes a lot, and I end up not doing it. So for example, let me go to my varsity years. Let's say we get an assignment that I had to do, and then instead of me doing the assignment in time and completing it, and because I have to complete it and I have to get good grades, I have to be perfect, hand in a perfect assignment, because I know I'm capable, right? So now the thoughts will come in of, okay, no man, you still have time, you'll do it. And then you start looking at the workload, and you're like, it's actually a lot of work, how am I going to perfect this? And then you're like, okay, I'll do it. And then it's sort of like you sort of delay it because you start to see that maybe I might not perfect it. Maybe I don't know this, I don't know that, and I need to find this and I need to find that, and oh my gosh, I have to speak to people, you understand? There's a lot of these things that come, and then on top of that, there's those thoughts of your lecturer might think of this when they're reading your paper, or this, like, there's all these unnecessary thoughts that just flood in your mind, and then you end up not doing it. Fine, you immobilize, and then last minute, the morning of it, there's this overwhelming anxiety that comes in, because now you want to do it perfectly. You didn't give yourself enough time, so now you're beating yourself up for not giving yourself enough time, because you felt incapable of doing it in the first place. And then it's like this contradictory emotions happening in your mind, and then on top of that, you have to finish it, and it has to be perfect, and guys, and it just gets so overwhelming that now you sort of torn between. Your minds are like fighting. It's a strong feeling of it needs to be done. And then the strong feeling of it needs to be perfect. And you know, it's just this horrible space to be in. And you do it, fine, it's done, you send it through, and then the results come in. Fine, you got a 70%. And your friends are like, oh my gosh, we all did it in the morning. Oh my gosh, we got like 30%, we got 50%, we got 60%. We never got good marks. I took like a whole month to do it and I got like 60%. And they just like giving you all these praises and all of that. But for you in that state, I would always be like, but had I given myself time, I probably would have gotten like 90%. But had I, sorry, yeah, but had I done this, I would have probably, sorry about that, guys. But yeah, so you start telling yourself these things now, instead of celebrating it, or instead of being like, oh, I did good, you know, I got a good mark, decent mark, especially because of what I put myself through. So now, instead of celebrating these marks and being like, you know, I did quite well, you know, it was thinking of how you got your marks, you know, you end up thinking thoughts of, had I done it earlier, I could have gotten a better mark. Had I taken time to do it, had I this, had I that. And then instead of celebrating the great mark, you cripple yourself, you put yourself down, and all these thoughts come back, and then it sort of also cripples you again. And then the next time you remember the last time that, oh, I should have done it earlier. Then when you have to do it earlier, it's like a cycle of these thoughts that weigh you down in things that you do, you know. So a lot of times we are not aware of these dynamics of certain traits we have, you know. And the more we open up, the more we unburden ourselves, the more we unlock those dungeons we have in our minds and set these things free, these thoughts free. Because now you avoid these thoughts, because whenever something comes like that, something comes up in your mind like that, you sort of like shut it down. Whenever there's a thought, you shut it down. You're like, I don't want to feel this, I don't want to think this, because you start to think of yourself as insufficient, or as that you self-sabotage, you do this, and you're like, oh. And then you start thinking, I'm a horrible person, I could be such better if I did this. And then same cycle. So now, in order to avoid that, you face the thought, and now you look at it with your grown-up mind, that you're like, okay, no, well, I'm different now, I see it differently, I experience it differently. Okay, I understand where it comes from. You get the root, and you now know, okay, next time I have this thought, I'll be able to deal with it in a better way. You understand? So that's the whole process that I'm going through. So in terms of perfectionism, that's what I've been going through, and I've been trying to, like, you know, I don't know, I've been trying to reshape my thoughts. So when thoughts like that come, I'm always like, sure, I still portray it sometimes. I even, like, I'll show you a bit of clips of this video of how long it took me the whole day to make this, where I could have done it quicker, but because I felt like, you know, so I ended up, yeah. So it's still a big factor, but I'm still trying to, you know, overcome it and try to deal with it better. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope this serves you well. I hope this finds you well. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I love you guys. Bye. Another thing is that when I wanted to finish the sentence. You see, now I wanted to finish the sentence before I got to the new idea, but now I forgot the idea just because I wanted to finish the sentence without mentioning. It's fine. Okay. I can't start over again because I can't. the irony. Let's start again. Because for the longest time, I used to pride myself with being perfect. Okay. That's not good. Okay, start again. In the scripts. So the fifth sign is defensiveness. So usually as a procrastinator, okay. So the fifth sign is defensiveness. So usually as a perfectionist, you tend to be highly sensitive to criticism. So even if it's positive, okay. So the fifth sign is. 2, 3. So the fifth sign is defensiveness. So most of the time, when you are a perfectionist, you tend to be highly sensitive to criticism. So let's say someone gives you criticism, it can be positive feedback, constructive. Okay. The fifth sign is criticism. Okay. The fifth sign is defensiveness. So the fifth sign is defensiveness. So most of the time, perfectionists tend to be highly sensitive to criticism. So they tend to end up being defensive. Most of the time, when someone says anything, they start being defensive. If someone criticizes you, it gets bad. So even if it's sorry again. Okay. So the fifth sign is criticism. The fifth sign is defensive. The fifth sign is defensiveness. So most of the time, people that are perfectionists tend to be sensitive and highly sensitive to criticism. Did I say that already? I don't know. Okay. The fifth sign is defensiveness. So most of the time, highly, okay. The fifth sign is defensiveness. So most of the time, okay. Sign that you are an imperfection. It's because I think you're imperfection. I can't believe I said that. Okay.